So I'm kind of banking on the fact that this is a science fiction channel to state that unless that you've been living under a rock or something, you've probably heard about the whole UAP phenomenon thing that's happening right now. And as the proprietor of a small science fiction channel, I just felt that this conversation's happening and it's in the news and it's current, and I can't let it go by without contributing to the conversation. So this is my position as the decline and fall of British sci-fi on the whole UAP thing. So far though, the two answers to the Fermi paradox that stick in my mind and the ones that fascinate me the most. One is this idea of this whole dark forest, where you're the hunter in the forest that's all dark with a gun and every other species is the same kind of thing, and you, as soon as you meet, you wipe each other out, and that is the answer to the Fermi paradox. Again, that just opens up a whole spectrum of argument. The same about intelligence, evolution. I mean, who's to say that the universe appears to be dead isn't because there's been some precursor species that has worked out that the afterlife does exist, and when you die you ascend onto a higher dimension of existence perhaps, and it is some bizarre act of altruism in their eyes. What they done was to go around and exterminate all of the other lower species, and that's why there's no other life out there. Or is there this higher species out there that deliberately holds lower species back? Who knows? But again, you've got this whole concept of intelligence there. Now, if you was to take a child from North Sentinel Island and raise that child anywhere else in the world, that child will still be as intelligent as any other human being. So, for instance, why would you assume that humanity is less intelligent than an alien species? Just because we haven't happened on the technology yet and we haven't developed that far. That's not intelligence at all. That's just civilization and growth and technological prowess. And the writer, Cixin Liu, who wrote The Free Body Problem, which you really should check out. I've had it on Audible because the old dyslexia, can't read it sort of thing, but it's amazing. But he's introduced me to these concepts of, like, for instance, as a species, we have changed our planet to suit our needs. We've built dams, made giant lakes, we've diverted rivers, we've irradiated the place, we've affected the climate to such a degree that the whole planet's on fire at the moment. So why can't a higher species of alien, who's more technologically developed than us, change the universe? Affect, say for instance, the speed of light, which actually is a nice segue onto me talking about my preferred answer to the Fermi paradox, which is the zoo hypothesis, this concept that we are watched over by a higher species of an alien. So I mentioned the North Sentinelese a moment ago, and it doesn't match, but it rhymes. For instance, the North Sentinelese can look out at the ocean surrounding their island, and in the distance they may see the lights of a large oil tanker going past. But because they've got no concept of an oil tanker, they don't perceive it as an oil tanker, in the way that we may look into the universe and see things and just not perceive any intelligent design there to it. It's just a natural thing that happens within the universe. A ship got wrecked on North Sentinel Island, and they started using the metal from it in their arrows. So unnaturally, they was brought from the Stone Age to the Steel Age overnight. And you could argue with all the alien conspiracy stuff about Roswell and all that kind of business that maybe there have been crashed UFOs and we've extracted the tiniest amount of tech we can out of it, and it has brought us into the modern computer age, for instance. And the reason that the aliens don't make contact with us is the same reason that the North Sentinelese are protected. We are like a curiosity to them. They want to see how their equivalent of Stone Age species interacts and develops and grows, kind of thing, without any outside influence. Again, this is just my chatting shit in the pub shit talk. And I'm spouting it because it sort of, with my limited grasp of the subject, rhymes, so to speak. Also, I think, sort of in keeping with this whole idea of aliens sort of having the technology to manipulate the universe around them in the way that we manipulate nature around us, is this sort of idea that it's so hard for us to leave this planet. It takes a national effort, but it just seems so arbitrarily hard for us to escape from planet Earth. To put a few dozen men, a few tens of men onto the moon, which is just a tiny distance away from Earth in the grand scheme of things. It took almost the treasure of a century, the accumulated wealth of a century for the United States of America, and an enormous national effort akin to the Manhattan Project to do it. It just strikes me as just a bit arbitrary. The same with the speed of light. The speed of light to me seems arbitrarily slow. And I just can't help but think sometimes, is that by design? Is it the equivalent of the bars around the ape enclosure at the zoo? And we live in a seemingly perfect part of the Milky Way galaxy. We're tucked out of the way, and we can't see the other side of the galaxy because the plane of the Milky Way gets in the way of it. And doesn't it strike you as a bit odd that at the time where there's an intelligent species on planet Earth that's intelligent enough to realise the significance of it, the moon is just the right distance away from us to create an eclipse? And that's extremely rare from what we've seen on exoplanets and things like that, from the scientific discoveries. It's extremely rare for that to happen. Earth, if we used to be living in a populated, busy universe full of lots of species, a la Star Wars faraway galaxy, Earth would be a tourist spot just for that alone. And I'm not even going to talk about the pyramids because I am just not qualified to talk about that at all. It's never been a subject that I've particularly found that interesting, although as I've got a bit older I am starting to look into it a bit more. But again, that leads you on to another thing about aliens. Maybe they're not aliens, maybe they're humans from a precursor civilization of humans. Who knows? There are vast swathes of human history that are lost to us. For instance, we don't even know exactly who the Sea Peoples were. We don't know what really caused the Bronze Age collapse. There's civilizations completely lost all around the Middle East and the Mediterranean. You know nothing of them. And just ask yourself the question, if we was to wipe ourselves out in a nuclear war or something, how much knowledge would survive that? There'll be anecdotal stories of this great reckoning that happened, perhaps, but all of the knowledge that went before that would be wiped out. And if it wasn't wiped out straight away, it would be wiped out just over time. Humanity's got a habit of losing knowledge. I mean, it may sound frivolous, but how much information was lost when MySpace deleted itself by accident, for instance? Musicians worldwide lost tons of work because of that. So I think my position is making itself a little bit clear to myself actually at the moment. I think this is a subject that personally I love just talking shit about, really, and exploring and philosophising over and everything, and I think it's something many people like to do as well, because it's a massive existential question. Although I am kind of, due to the amount of science fiction I've been exposed to, I am sort of thinking to myself, I think I prefer the Red Dwarf answer to this one, in that there's no alien life out there to be found. It's just an existential horror show. It's a hostile and meaningless universe out there, and the only other life forms are just either genetically engineered life forms or they're just machine life. Although there again, this idea of a machine civilization is terrifying in its own right. What would the machines do if they see what we was doing to the toasters when they reached the end of their lifespan? The silence, though, is just deafening. There appears to be nothing out there, with the exception of the wow signal, perhaps, which has got the biggest minds on this planet scratching their heads over. So I ain't even going to bother going into that one. And as much as there's nothing out there for us, again, there's nothing here for them. I mean, for all we know, they could land here and it could be a war of the world scenario where some idiot sneezes at them and that's it, they're dead. And why would they be here anyway? There is literally nothing on planet Earth which will be easily extractable for them or easily mobile for them, which they can't just stop off on one of the asteroids that orbit the sun and get anyway. Now, Jean-Michel Gordier is one of my most favourite YouTubers. And he's one of my most favourite YouTubers for a reason, is that he talks just so much sense about it. He takes a very rational and logical and scientific approach to it. And I learn a lot from him. And he's mentioned in his videos that, 10 reasons why aliens might come here, 10 reasons they won't. One of them that stuck out in my mind was our star, the sun. It's a rare type of star. And planet Earth is in a very cushy position in the habitable zone around that star. But again, if you've got the technology to go and travel across the universe, and although our star is quite rare, it's not the only one like it, why go to one where there's a bunch of psychotic apes going around the outside of it that are bound to cause trouble? But there again, this whole UFO thing seemed to really get traction in the 1950s when we was doing loads of nuclear tests. And I remember watching a YouTube video a few years ago, and the guy on it was Jean-Michel Gordier, who was saying one of the things that we might see as an alien techno-signature would be a series of fast gamma ray bursts from a civilization wiping itself out in a nuclear war. So that may have broadcast us and our existence to a group of aliens that were just exploring. Think of the Vulcans in Star Trek First Contact. Although instead of the warp signature from the Phoenix they spotted this series of fast gamma ray bursts. The one thing I am certain of, though, is that if there is life out there, it's going to be completely different to anything we could have ever predicted it would be like. And again, reaching back to the beginning of this, when I said about the aliens we see are just mirrors that we hold up to ourselves, because of that, society and popular culture in general hasn't prepared for this, and they will be completely different to us in every way possible. They might not even be carbon based. And if, for instance, tomorrow they was just to come out of it and go, yeah, there's aliens out there, it would be bad news. It wouldn't be good news. It will be bad news because all of a sudden we're not the top life form anymore. We'd be no more important in the run of things on this planet than rabbits. And who knows what alien intentions they may have. Say for instance they was to discover, like in the film 2001: A Space Odyssey, they discover this large Von Neumann probe out there orbiting Jupiter or something. That's bad news, because now we ain't even control of our own backyard. And again, I'm fascinated with the dark forest theory of things. That alien race may be just keeping an eye on us on the down low because they fear us. They fear our technological prowess. Also, what's to say that the aliens are more intelligent than us just because they're more technologically developed than us? The aliens that visit Earth, if they do, they could have inherited all of their technology from a precursor species that they no longer have the ability to manufacture this technology at all. They've just got a basic understanding of how it works in the way that we sort of all understand how to make fire. They've got this instinctive knowledge of how to operate these machines that have been left to them. But again, what is really worth remembering in all of this is that I'm talking out my fucking arse because I know nothing about this subject apart from what I've seen in episodes of Star Trek or Doctor Who or watched films and everything, which is the same as what you've got. I'm assuming by the fact that you're on this channel and you enjoy science fiction. But the key thing as well, apart from all that, is that again, nobody has turned around and confirmed anything. It's just not been confirmed by no one. Somebody's come up and blown the whistle, but all he's really done is, with the other two gentlemen that was with him, is say, look, we're blowing the whistle on the reporting procedure for unidentified aerial phenomenon. I.e., me and my mates, these other pilots, we're getting sick and tired of being too scared to go and say anything about this in case we get labelled a nut job. But at the same time, from the perspective of the American military, you need strong, stable operators that don't see things like that without them actually being there. But anyway, this is just a personal view of a very small YouTuber in a very small part of London. So take everything I'm saying with a pinch of salt. It's just a personal opinion of somebody who loves science fiction and somebody who loves science and somebody who loves talking about this sort of stuff. And apparently I ain't got no one to talk to about it this time of night.